this is why I love reading. And this summer, actually, my wife and I did a program called 75 Hard. And it actually says read 10 pages, physically read 10 pages every single day. And I just
love that for a goal.
Oh, it was such a fun, it was outside of the exercise of this program, but it was just exercising our brain and, that mental fitness that we all just have to focus on that. This is a muscle just the same as this is.
Definitely. All right, welcome back. I'm Jason.
And I'm Colter. Good to be here.
And I am excited about our topic today.
I am too.
We're going to talk, we talked about, last week, we talked about goal setting, and we just did an episode on education. And as we were sitting there talking, Colter and I, we thought, you know what? I wonder if I think most people realize how important it is to read books that can help and inspire you. But I really want to dig into it, what it is about books and what that can do for you and your business and your family and your relationships. And one of the things early on in my pursuit of entrepreneurship or of doing something different, one of my favorite mentors, Zig Ziglar, which I've only met once, and it was in Portland at a huge mindset conference back in like 2007 or 8. And anyways, one of the things he talked about, he said, if you read 20 minutes a day, he did the math, if you read 20 minutes a day and you're an average reader, you could read 10 200-page books in a year. And then he put this question out there, what would that do for you? And what advantage would that give you in the marketplace on whatever business you're in, on whatever job you're working at? What advantage would that give you? And man, that I locked that in. And I'm like, I got to listen to more books.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really powerful, not just recommendation, but really a statistical, like, this is why you read books. I mean, 200 pages, it seems daunting to some people, right? But then you think about 2,000 pages, if it's 10 books, like, how does somebody tackle that other than just starting with page 1?
There you go. You got to start. And here's the thing. I'm not a reader. I hate reading. In fact, I don't even like people who like to read. No, I'm kidding. I like people who like to read. My wife's a reader. But anyway,
all right, now we're going to move on. Colter's going to take over this show.
No, but me, I listen. And I love to listen to books on tape. That's where I'm at. And I say tape. I'm aging myself. But I listen to Audible now. And man, I tell you what, it's a game changer to listen to stuff.
Yeah. It's funny, and I got to go along with your whole, like, not liking a certain demographic for whatever reason, right? I walked into a bookstore, and I was selling radio ads at the time because my folks owned radio stations, and it was for country radio.
Awesome.
And I walk in there, and I give my, short elevator sales pitch, and like, I think this could be really good. You're brand new to the community. And she's like, people who listen to country music don't read books.
I knew that's where you're going when you said that. That's hilarious.
And I'm like, well, I sell radio advertising for country music stations, and I just so happen to like books. So it looks like our conversation here is over. I just didn't get that sell.
Yeah, I'll bet. But I'll tell you what, there is a lot of people out there that don't like to read, but they love to listen. And I think probably half the people that I know out there that listen to books on, through Audible or whatever it is, or however they listen to it, they prefer listening than they do reading. Mm-hmm. And even my wife has gotten to the point where she will read and listen. Like, she'll follow along with the book. And then she's even kind of converted over to completely listening, because I think listening, you could do other things. Like for me, I can't sit in my house and put a book on it and listen to it. I won't get anything out of it. But if I'm driving, or if I'm mowing the lawn, or I'm doing something else, man, I'll tell you what, my mind opens up and I retain. I mean, I don't want to make some kind of ridiculous what I retain, but it is over the top on what I can retain and what I could listen to a book and I could teach a class on right after I listen to it, because the way my mind works on how it listens. But if I read a book, I could maybe give you one quote. on what I retain.
No, that's incredible. And see, what I do is I'll listen to let's say 10 books, and then I'll end up buying 2 or 3 of those in the hard copy because I want to reference the specific principles in there so that I can go back and read the quotes and I can get familiar with what it was actually saying, and then I can digest it in even a different way. So I've heard the audible, and then I've gone to the written word, and then just solidified even that much more.
I'm glad you said that because I just ordered, never finished the book. So I listened to it on Audible, and I wanted it too. I wanted it not only for notes, but he's got pictures in there. He had a couple other worksheets in there that I wanted. And so I went to a bookstore downtown. It's a small little bookstore. I said, hey, can you guys order this for me? And they're like, yeah, we'll have it in a week. And I just went and picked it up. So I'm excited to go through and write down some notes and highlight some things that I remember from the book because I want to be able to reference that. That's the only thing I like about Audible is it's really hard to reference. You can bookmark and you can highlight a little bit, but man, it doesn't replace having a hard copy of something that you can underline. You can write notes in the margins. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It's that's important. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. So my most recent one is Outwitting the Devil.
Love that book. I just finished that a couple months ago.
It is one of my favorites for sure. This definiteness of purpose is
so powerful.
Is so powerful.
Because sometimes I think, am I on purpose right now, or am I just drifting?
Just drifting. Yeah. Yeah, and it talks about these principles, and it's one that you should read. I mean, and I think that me listening to that once, and then the second time, and then grabbing the hard copy and going back through those pages, and being able to go and read more about the definiteness of purpose, or am I identifying with what a drifter would be?
Yeah.
And those principles it makes me better because I say, one is I've learned about it. Now, how do I implement it into my personal life? And this is why I love reading. And this summer, actually, my wife and I did a program called 75 Hard. And it actually says read 10 pages, physically read 10 pages every single day. And I just
love that for a goal.
Oh, it was such a fun, it was outside of the exercise of this program, but it was just exercising our brain and, that mental fitness that we all just have to focus on that. This is a muscle just the same as this is.
Definitely. So I want to tell you just a quick story on how I got into audiobooks so much. I was driving truck. I drove for Big Brown, and I did that for almost 10 years. But my first couple years in, I listened to a lot of talk radio. And talk radio is great. I'm not saying anything bad about it. But, I used to work nights. And so driving at night, I'd listen to a program called After Dark. And then I listened to a program with Art Bell. And it was weird stuff. He interviewed vampires and interviewed Bigfoot. And I mean, he had all sorts of stuff. But it did well because it kept you awake at night, as you're driving. Because there's not much happening on the interstate from here to Salt Lake in the middle of the night. Not much at all. So I kind of got into it a little bit, but then I'm like, man, is this making me better at all by listening to somebody interview a so-called vampire, right? It's not adding anything to me at all, even though it was kind of fun to talk with my buddies. And so I went to the library and I checked out my first book on tape. And at that time, my truck had a tape player. And so I plugged it in and man, I flipping loved it. And then my wife started getting audio stuff because she was getting her bachelor's degree at the time. So I started listening to some of the books she was reading, which like Plato's Republic and I don't know, there's a couple other ones. And they were really good. I'm like, man, I learned a lot. And so then she was giving me books that she was reading for her classes. And then we talk about those different books. And then I started checking everything out at the library. Anything Anthony Robbins, anything Zig Ziglar, anything, all the sales greats. Anthony, I can't remember some of the names. But anyways, I started listening to all that stuff. And it really started to change my mindset. And then I ran into that book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I'm sure you've read multiple times. And that got me on to thinking, what about real estate? Maybe I could do real estate. And that in turn got me into buying a first couple pieces of real estate, which in turn got me into an education program, which got me to a point where I could quit my job 2 years after. And I've been a full-time investor ever since. So just that one decision on, I could listen to talk radio, which is okay, but why not feed my brain full of something? Like you said, invest in that 6 inches in between your ears, work on that muscle. Man, it's been a game changer for me. And I am continually listening to books. I just never finished, which is funny. And then I just read a book this morning called Go for No, which kind of seems simple. It's only an hour and a half long book. It's got like 30 chapters, but each chapter is like 5 minutes long. It's really short chapters. Awesome book. If you haven't read it yet or haven't listened to it, you got to get it. It is a great book for salespeople.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've just added some books to my list. Go for No. Never Finished.
Never Finished is great. Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's so much fun. Like we get together. My one brother likes to listen to a lot of books on tape or CD or Audible, and we talk about books that we've read. And religious books, that's another way to really dig in and listen to different things that you want to get more religious if that's you, or get more spiritual if you want to. It just seems kind of daunting to sit down and think, okay, I'm going to pick up the Bible and I'm going to read it, or I'm going to pick up this motivational book that's this big and read it. Think and Grow Rich. What a great book! And I read that one back in the day, even though I don't like reading. But when I listened to it, man, I got 10 times more out of it. And that's a book that I try to read about once a year or once every other year, is Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. Which now, Outwitting the Devil, that's my book. That thing I'm going to listen to that every year. I think is because it's all about that. We get complacent, and I think complacency leads to drifting, and drifting leads to nowhere. It's drifting. And as long as we can have that definiteness of purpose, I think by listening to books and reiterating what we already know, it's like Rocky telling his son, let me tell you something that you already know. And he goes through that whole big motivational thing, And I love that because everything we hear, even on books, we already know it for the most part. Yeah. But it's reiterating it on how important it is.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of concepts that we can generally understand.
Yeah.
Right? But then how do we develop an expertise or a refinement of that knowledge into something that is actionable and purposeful for ourselves?
We all know how to lose weight. It's just whether or not we do it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it really
Move more, eat less. I mean, that's really how simple it is. In fact, I've lost quite a bit of weight in the last few months. And people are like, how'd you do it? I'm like, eat more, eat less, move more. I almost said it wrong. Move more, eat less. That's really what it is. Oh, come on. Is it that simple? It's that simple. You got to move a little more and you got to eat a little less. And if you do that, you'll lose weight. And so why don't most people do it, right? We already know how to do it, but why don't we do it? And it's that mindset. We got to change that mindset.
We do.
And that's what listening to books does for you.
Yeah. And once you change that mindset, there's actions that you can take beyond that say, I'm going in the direction that I want to go. It is that purposeful action every single day that's intentional and taking you in the direction you want to be.
Yeah, it's like that book, Atomic Habits, which we kind of talked a little bit about how to goal set. Really, every concept we hear in a book, it's the same concept that Socrates was talking about. I mean, it's been around for thousands of years. Most concepts, it's like Think and Grow Rich. How many people have written that same concept of Think and Grow Rich? He was pretty much the first one. Well, Wallace D. Wattles did one. I don't know if you guys are big book readers, but he did one on The Secret of Getting Rich, is what Wallace D. Wattles, which then Napoleon Hill did one, Think and Grow Rich, which he kind of, not plagiarized, but he got the ideas, and then he went out and interviewed a whole bunch of millionaires and billionaires and wrote his book. But it's the same concept, it's just different. Like, it's their perspective on it.
Sure.
I mean, there's really not a book out there that's been a new book. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's even movies. I mean, how many movies? How many times can they blow up the in Star Wars? What's the big? Why is my brain not working? Every episode they blow up the star, not the Star Destroyer.
The Starship.
The what?
Death Star.
The Death Star. There you go. I couldn't remember it. Yeah, how many times they blown that thing up, right?
We just called our lifeline.
We just called our lifeline. Yeah, sorry about trying to make an example, and I didn't know what I was talking about. I do. I'm a big Star Wars fan, but for some reason it just didn't come to me. But it's the same thing. It's just done differently. And each time I listen to the same concept, but reiterated with a different perspective of somebody else, I learn a little bit more.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. Human behavior is generally the same. We're driven by the same things. We have to have the same essentials, food, water, shelter. At the end of the day, we are humans trying to survive in a world that has all of its internal, external factors, and we're just trying to understand them better. And these, the books, the knowledge we can obtain from other intelligent people around us and surrounding ourselves with the right people and putting ourselves in the right places to do that, just makes us be that much better.
So much better. I mean, everybody can agree Trump's not the smartest guy in the world. But what he does do is he surrounds himself with smart people. And that's why by listening to audiobooks, you're surrounding yourself by smart people. I'm not the smartest person out there, but man, if I can get the knowledge from a Colter or from a Trump or from a, who knows, Napoleon Hill, that's somebody that's written a book or has a podcast, Ed Milet, I love Ed Milet. I listen to his podcast all the time. And he's got something that I can learn from. Even though it's a concept that's been around for thousands of years, it's his perspective. And because he changed a little bit and regurgitates it, man, we pick up on just a little something different.
Yeah, we do. Well, go pick up your next book. Improve your knowledge, increase your ability to be able to perform the tasks that you already are doing, but do it a little bit better. Become that expert in the topics and ideas that complement you.
Definitely. And if you're looking for ideas of books to read or books to listen to, reach out to us. I'll give you 12 books right off the bat of what you need to read if you haven't read them already. And a couple of them you need to read is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's one. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't read either one of those, read those first. And then we'll jump into some other ones. So
go do it.
I guess that's it. Thanks a lot for coming in, or not coming in. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yes, we will.